Your musical journey, where it started, the things you heard, the music you've witnessed firsthand, the era, the times, the industry at that point. Whether it was in black and white, like my kids think still, when it was black and white back then. No, everything was color. Dear God. Uh, and everything in between. What shaped your musical journey? And is it over? Our panelists take us on that journey of sound, mind, tonight on episode number 8. Hello, Music Multiverse listeners, and welcome to Beyond Your Radios of Sound Minds. What shaped your musical journey, and is it over? This is the show that gives a topic and let our panelists just go wherever the hell they want to go with it. So get your favorite beverage, a snack, whatever it takes, because, with us, there's 5 of us, and if we each talk for 10 minutes, you got an hour. And if Alex continues talking, it'll be, an hour and 10.
So, and he's always wrong. So,
so what are you even listening to me to begin with? I'm your intermission. Just put me third.
Yeah. Well, but yes, that's right. We'll put you. Yeah, we'll put you as a halftime show.
Put me second. I should take a nap during his.
I've wanted to do a halftime show ever since Janet Jackson.
Oh, that's we don't need to see that. Okay. Who's on the panel tonight? Well, we'll say Alex Kaluzny's here. We got Damn in the place. Susie Q's ready to go. She's in the dark. The Grateful Dude.
Okay.
Speaking of sound minds, if you're thinking what we're thinking, come on, you are. What are you thinking? Comment, like, subscribe. We need 3 more people back. We went down 3. That's right.
Oh, no.
You make a Jimi Hendrix comment like I did. You're about a couple people.
Yeah, you almost lost me.
Can you blame them?
Oh.
It's all right. Andy Edwards just went off on Foo Fighters. Maybe I should show that one to Sue. Said they're the most unimportant band ever.
What?
Who said that?
Andy Edwards.
Shame on him.
Pointless. One of the most pointless bands of all time.
I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
That's jumping on the bandwagon. Like,
no, he's never liked them since day one. He's done 3 videos on them.
So he was waiting for his opportunity.
Yeah. Picking a man when he's down at the nursery with his
he's saying, why
love
is it
child?
Relevant? Musicians have been doing this since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
But for them, it's more relevant, I guess. Anyway, so I think we should start off with the youngest member of the panel tonight.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh, Alex.
Deb?
Oh.
Yeah.
Alex, let's hear where your musical journey began and where it is at this moment.
So I never realized when I was a kid what was forming all the times my dad would just play something randomly in the house. Usually subsequently followed by my comments of play it again, or I really like that one, or you just kind of spout things off as a kid when you hear them. So from that, really it was my dad in that sense, and just what he would play around the house. Not so much my mom, but I'll get into that in a second. So it started with that. Apparently I was at an Iron Maiden concert when I was only months old and got told by some guy, rock on, little dude. Not like I could ever tell you that I was at an Iron Maiden concert, because at 6 months old, my brain was about as developed as it was 6 days ago. So don't know if that totally counts, or if you draw any inspiration of that, or believe in the theory that you develop your music taste inside of the womb or whatever else. But the first memories were just what I remember liking as I grew up. Now, when I say I was going to get into my mom's side of it, I just remember, and hockey played a big part of this for me as a kid. I was probably one of the first kids that ever. Nowadays, you see them all with earbuds in, walking into games, and something's playing on their phone through it and whatever. I was doing this before it was ever cool, with a Walkman CD player and those chintzy little foam circles around your ears with the big wire, or the big wiry headband and a cord that was way too long plugged into it, and pissed when AA batteries died.
Oh my God, you were coming to my house. I thought you had braces. That's not what that was on your head.
Actually, never
I'm
had
teasing you.
braces, but that's why my teeth
No,
are still
but you had
fucked up.
that band thing.
What's amazing though is when he was over, the TV reception got better.
Yeah, I'm like, what's happening? Tell Alex to go
Stand right
home.
there, Alex. Perfect. Okay.
Sweat.
So I mean, I was doing that long before anyone else and not realizing that, like, I found that I was playing better as an athlete when I had something in my head that was kind of playing to the cadence of how I wanted to be that day. Did I want something more up tempo? Did I need to relax? Whenever I tried to play without anything running in my head psychologically, I played sometimes worse because I was so caught up in the moment that it got stressful that if I was just playing something else, I got to naturally react to things. Or, there was a little bit of a psychological game that I played with myself early in my development of listening to music. So that's kind of where it began for me. And when I say to my mom's effect is sometimes I'd be listening to my CDs in the car. Sometimes I was listening to Casey Kasem's Top 50, and sometimes I was listening to a little bit of 90s country at the back end of the 90s there in the early 2000s. So that was even a little bit different too, because I was off country for a while, and as a freshman in college, it came back to me that I started listening to it again. And obviously there's a little nostalgia, and you pick up some of what was new at that time, and couldn't tell you why the two correlated, but they did. And it was also a little bit of a lost my path, came back to it on the countryside too. So got to relearn it like it was a first time thing. To where it is now, I mean, all right, you kind of go from that to this show has been, I think, comparable to years of conversations with Mark before the show's inception. And it was basically like having the show, but every time I called Mark on the road. Where he was just telling me about something new that came out, and I had 6 hours on the road, so when we hung up I'd play it. Or and then obviously you get to the show and you see the different formats, and it challenges you a little bit, and you end up having to listen to the band and then go back into time a little bit again. And so I mean, where the journey's at now for me, and I focused more on this than where it began for me. I think the journey's been a little bit more stressful now. And it comes into one of my fundamental beliefs with music is it's just there's so much now quantity wise. And for as fun as it is to find the needle in the haystack, it can get overwhelming trying to sift through everything to get to that point. And you can lean on a show like this and, watch on Saturdays and have Mark tell you what sucks and doesn't suck to him. But until you listen to it yourself, because I've learned from experience, I don't like everything he likes and vice versa.
That's a problem.
Yeah,
But it sounds like a you problem.
Making my case.
that's
So-
all of our problem.
So but to that, that you don't
Yeah.
just want to take a recommendation. You want to find out for yourself.
Mhm.
And there's gotten to a point that there's so much out there. And then you get to where, you want things to be natural, or at least I do. And you got to debunk if something's been tampered with too much in production and whatever. And there's little niches like that make you want to rule stuff out. So I think that the music experience for me now has become a little bit overwhelming, a little stressful. You want to listen to it all. There's a desire there that you really want to see what's out there and build your library to what you like of things, and to have the knowledge. But there's only so much time in a day. And I'm doing more than just, listening to music. It's side projects, it's work, it's whatever. And the reason and everyone will counter with, well, you can listen at work, you can listen while you're on, and I do while I'm mowing. Actually, that's probably the one time I actually get it done. Finding different time to listen, but am I listening or is it background noise? And that again is
Yep.
one of the stressors that I put into it. Like if I'm cooking, which if I am, I'm probably cooking for myself because I will kill someone if they eat it. But if I'm cooking, I'm more focused on, is this cooking well enough? Is it how much time? Do I need something? Am I missing a step? But am I listening to that music in the background? Probably not. And I
Mhm.
need to put on something that's of the more familiar variety that can just kind of go on autopilot. No, I enjoy this, and it's in the back of my head and not the front. But to really appreciate something new, I gotta sit and focus on it. And that's where in my journey now, there's a little bit of a there's so much out, and I want to get to it all, and you just can't. You're human. Um, and I think that's something that can even stunt most of the time that I do get to listen, because there's a little bit of like, well, I'll push it off and get to it when I have more time. And then when is that time? Is it in a week, 2 weeks, month, 3 months? Did you miss already half the year since something came out? Which I am almost a year behind of things I want to listen to that have come out. So yeah, you got to sort through that stuff, and you have your favorites and whatnot that you can always make time for. But again, it comes back to, there's so many bands, so many artists. How do you find the time to mix it all in? And that's, maybe a kudos to Mark in this project, and why I think more people should appreciate how much time you put into all the things you've listened to.
Absolutely.
But for me, as just a casual listener and a regular guest on this show, it is very, the enjoyment is there when I get the moments, but there's definitely a stress when you don't get those moments. And I'd like to be able to expand that library more. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting at right now with time that I've spent on it.
Do you think that you have that you're not stuck, but the music that you started to enjoy and love is not there anymore, and you just keep going back and you don't want to go forward? Is because you're in the younger generation in this panel, all
Yeah,
right? And I wonder where you sit on that. Is new music appeal to you? Does it not appeal
yeah.
to
It's
you?
it's honestly been very easy for me to get into a lot more new stuff for sure, and there's kind of a coolness factor to it, and I credit a lot of when I was coaching to my players, um and them tipping me
Mhm.
off to things that maybe
Yeah.
I hadn't
Right.
before. And I know a lot
Mhm.
of older coaches, older than I, that have had the same experience because of that, and what we did as coaches in the collegiate level. But another way I really try to find that stuff out too is just when you go to shows and they bring in openers that you don't know. And
Mhm.
Another good point. Yeah.
I like seeing it live for the first time too. Like recently, I hadn't listened to the Menzingers for shit, um, and I saw them opening up one day, and for the Glorious Sons, and I was like, holy shit, gotta throw them on the list now and do a little bit of a backward dive that way. But I think one of the nice things too for me is that some of the generation of music that you guys each grew up to can still be considered new to me, depending on what it is.
Mhm.
And that's been a fun little sweet spot. I think there's not everyone my age that can get to that point. Sometimes it's just the moment you
Mhm.
were in and this way. And then everyone gets into the throwback, but it's really when you landed on planet Earth is your throwback, is what you first heard. And they don't go past beyond that.
Mhm.
I'm very fortunate that I was built with a root in what was, and an appreciation for what got us to where we are. And then I got to appreciate what came after it, and grow up with a generation of artists that talk about having the same inspirations I did, growing up at the same times as I did, talking about listening to the same things as I did, and see what they're doing with it now, as I'm kind of in that sweet spot of age of 30. Um, and then I think I'm curious to know what that same question's like for you guys and what you hear now.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I'll be asking each. I'll be
because
asking.
I really think that one, I kind of cheat a little bit with it. I think that question for me should be spun the other way. And do you go back far enough to listen to everything that's kind of in this prime years of your life, so to speak? But I think for everyone who grew up with that, I mean, I kind of think of the 60s, 70s range is kind of like where music started in my head. I know there was stuff before it, but like, and I have my appreciation for stuff that, you know, dates back and, you know, your Rat Pack type stuff and singers and swing stuff. But when you kind of hit that, like, it's almost like the Beatles is where BC turns to AD in a way.
That's
and
certainly a
that,
common point of even point of one of the movies called Yesterday, I believe, and where the Beatles did not exist except for one individual who knew and how music was different since there was no Beatles.
I've been
Right.
meaning to watch that movie too,
and
I
so
haven't
looking
seen it yet.
and so looking back, like everything after that's kind of your AD period, and that's kind of where you start your adventure is, all right, well, was it after the Beatles? Okay, I'll give that a shot first. And so that was where the looking back kind of started. But I think for me, it's people who are younger, how much do you get to look back? Whereas I think for you guys, my question, kind of spinning it back to everybody else and doing it for Mark in this way, is how much do you keep going when your library is vast enough that you could easily stand pat and probably be content? But do you continue to move forth and forward with it? And one of the ways I say that I've done the opposite side of that is, like, there's only so much classic rock I can listen to before I've heard most of it in a given sitting. And I really enjoy Memorial Day weekend when 97 Rock does the Rock and Roll 500 and you hear the 500 song countdown. But again, it's 500 songs. You're not going to hear repeats during this for 4 days. And it's a very refreshing look at it, because honestly, I could listen to the Police right now if they came on 97 Rock and be like, God damn it, I don't really want to listen to that song, change it. And if it comes on during the 500th song countdown, I'm like, okay, this is landing at 367. What do I think now I'm curious what the next 5 songs are, if I think they're actually better than this. And you get into a mental cadence with it and you start playing that game and it's fun. And so I think I'm glad that I kind of did it that way, where I don't listen to classic rock as much until that weekend. And then it kind of makes me think like, okay, where does everything truly sit on me? And there's been songs that I've hated growing up that I hear that now and I'm like, okay, this doesn't suck as much as I thought that did.
That's so true. It's so true.
So I've had that emotion too out of it. And that, again, that comes from the looking back. And I'm very curious again for you guys, what it's like to kind of keep changing with the times when you have, I mean, say what it is, at least 2 decades of music on me that felt new.
I think it's easier to go back. I think it's actually part of our culture that goes back. And I'll throw this over to Susie Q, because something happened last night. One of our children was singing something.
Oh my God. Okay, cool.
Sue?
Okay. Well, I don't have as many words in me as Alex just shared.
Nobody does.
And I don't have any awesome, cool stories. But I know I think we've talked a little bit about some of this before, our early memories of music. Mine just kind of feels like a hodgepodge of, I don't really recall what my parents listened to. We had some records that were favorites that came out from time to time. The radio, couldn't tell you what they listened to. I know what they liked. They liked the music they used to dance to, which I didn't find appealing. I know that.
And forms of dance can even vary because of what the kind of music was.
Benny Goodman Orchestra.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
I
like
guess.
you can think of dancing as was this the Great Gatsby, or were you headbanging, or were you?
No, it was definitely. I'm trying to think now. I can't even think about.
No, but I'm not saying that's what it was, but I'm just kind of saying,
Yeah.
like, even the type of music influences something such as that too.
Yeah.
Lawrence Welk.
No, there was no Lawrence Welk. But of course I had three older siblings, so I heard the radio that they listened to. I heard the records that they played. Definitely influenced by that. Um, was in a drum and bugle corps for several years, and that brought in a lot of rock influence. That was during the boombox era. So that brought in a lot of heavier stuff for me that I didn't. It's not that I wasn't allowed to listen to it at home. It just, yeah, I don't
It
know.
wasn't there, right?
It was like, it felt right in that situation,
Yeah.
And then pop with my girlfriends because, all that was going on. I also had
How'd you hit the high note in I Want to Dance with Somebody?
could I?
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know now. I don't know.
That's another
I'm
show.
sure, I'm sure I tried, but another night we can try to do that. Um, we did do a lot of lip syncing though. We were like in the video age, so we would
Yeah, you
with
were.
Yeah.
that kind of
You
stuff.
were, yep.
And I was definitely influenced. We watched a lot of movies. So, for me, beyond like the radio and mainstream, there was a lot of soundtracks and just even for me, just music and old westerns and things like that.
Yeah.
I still like them. I still think they add so much to a story. I appreciate that. Um, there was piano. My mom played piano. My sister played piano. I took some piano. So there was that going on. And then running into Mark, of course, he was full out music. So he brought in a whole other dimension. That began like the concert going era and all that. And then we saw like a million bands. I couldn't even tell you who. But
That
I
could be a
think,
show, 7 hours.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think like Alex was saying too, though, like then things get changed in your life and your focus changes and you get busy, uh, and so your habits change, what you listen to, when you get to listen to it. Um, I there were moments in time where I could listen to the same CD for half a year, um, which is really weird, I guess. And I worked for a doctor one time who he had the days he was in different offices, he listened to certain CDs every time. And at first I thought it was really weird, but then you grow to love these artists. It was the Frank Sinatra, Barbara, that kind of crew. So that was going on. There's just been so much. But yeah, like I have to say again, like Alex, like you were saying, now I feel like since kids, there was some kind of black hole where I feel like I missed out on so much. Um, and you catch snippets and you're like, oh, that's really cool. But then you're distracted by 10 different things. Um, and during that time, we went from having a radio and limited exposure to now you can hear any kind of music from anywhere in the world at any time of day or night, which for me is too much. I don't like it. That menu is too big. Um, so I'm still picky and choosy on what I like to hear. I still listen to the radio.
Same.
Similar to like my running, like races, I like to be surprised. I don't like to have everything planned out and programmed for me. It feels weird.
Yes. Yes.
It's more fun to be like, oh, and if I don't like it, I turn it off,
I agree.
So,
Yeah.
I never had a playlist in my life. I don't even know how to make a playlist.
well, not that I haven't. I have
But
had
I
some,
know,
but yeah, like on a general basis, it's
Yeah.
fun, I think, to be surprised. So and then also influences too. Like recently, I've worked with some younger folks in my life, and they've also brought in new influences. So I'm definitely still hearing new music. Even today, I was driving to pick up Lauren, and I heard a song from Fontaine's DC.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying that
Great
correctly?
new album.
They've
Yep.
been around since 2019. Again, I had
Who
no
is it?
idea.
Fontaine's DC.
DC. I believe they're an Irish band.
Mhm.
And they have a really cool song, it's Starbuster.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I'll
Yep.
listen to this. It's a
Starbuster. Yep.
good song.
I
It's a
didn't
good
know the
song.
name of the band that did that song, but yeah.
Yeah.
And you brought up a point too, Sue. It's not just that there's so much out there and it's like, I can like it all. The hardest part is there's some shit out there. It's like, this should never have even existed or been created. It needs to be burned alive. And
Well,
you
there's
have
that.
you have to sift through both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then what Mark was talking about too. So one of our daughters, maybe both, they're watching a new Netflix series, and I love kind of how these Netflix people are doing this, infusing like old soundtracks, like they did with whatchamacallit,
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things,
Stranger Things.
the Menendez brothers series, like so now all of a sudden
Yes.
I'm
Millie
hearing
Vanilli.
yeah, I'm hearing a 6-year-old singing girl, whatever song she was singing. And it's
Girl,
like,
I'm
wait,
gonna miss you.
like I didn't recognize it at first. I'm like, wait a minute, I know this. And I don't know.
Yeah.
She had her little earbuds in, but I heard some Hall and Oates. I'm like,
Yes, there was. Yeah.
okay. So I'm like, this is kind of good because now these kids are getting an injection of something other than, just what they're told to listen to today to be cool. So that's kind of neat. I don't know. I'm open to listening to new music. This like you were saying again, this show definitely pushed me into listening to more, definitely listening to some things that I never would have. I kind of feel like I need to go back because like so many times one of you will give a great suggestion about what you like, and I'm like, oh, that
Yeah.
sounds really cool. And then I forget to write it down, but
Well, and I wanna
always write it down.
And I want to piggyback off that though too. What I think is great about the show is one of us, and 90% of the time it's usually Mark, if not 99% of the time, is doing the listening for you to not influence whether or not you listen to it, but give you suggestions as to why you may or may not like it.
mhm.
Try to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if it's not in your wheelhouse, nothing's got a gun to your head that says, oh my God, if you don't listen to this album, you
Right.
Mhm.
need to be shot on the spot. Like, no,
But on
like,
a little piggyback of that of your piggyback, sometimes you don't even know what's in your wheelhouse until somebody goes, maybe you
Yeah.
should listen to this and give it a chance because it might not
Yep.
be your first instinct to go for it. Because
Yeah.
there's been an awful lot that you've done for me with that, Mark. Not the Bedouin desert people, but everybody but
Narwin?
them.
And no one liked Tenarwin. All right, well.
well, okay,
knows?
but that's also, again, I mean, one of our shows was if this then that,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it very much
Right.
fit that. If they don't have to be the same, but
Right.
if you like that, you might like to go venture down that road too.
Mhm.
Yeah. But at
Sorry,
any
Sue.
rate, I feel like I was a big ramble. I'm not quite sure
No,
if that made sense, but
Yeah.
I don't think my musical journey is over by any means.
well,
Well,
we're
we'll
gonna
get
save
to-
the pontificating.
We'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I wanted to make sure the Millie Vanilli thing got in there. She's,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was just like, oh, yeah. And Sue was mentioning to her, she goes, yeah, one of the biggest music scandals of all time. They're
Yep.
not singing it. Somebody.
Nope.
So wait, what actually happened with you guys?
No, it was just one of our daughters was singing it, and I heard it. Sue heard it,
Ah,
and
Because
she's
they
singing
heard
and
it on a
and she's
Netflix show.
very
They
dramatic when
probably
she's
thought
singing
it was a new song.
No, she did not. That's one thing she's aware of. That like not well early on they would have been that way. Not anymore
Yes,
because
but
they
not
already
now.
know.
They're
Like,
old
okay,
enough to know.
okay.
so that's why I say it's easier to go back because our world
Yeah.
is obsessed with going back.
Yes.
So it's always something.
Fashion.
Yeah, it comes around again, right?
Well,
so
okay.
when Men
Fashion,
at Work,
movies, songs,
when Men at Work
albums.
comes
yeah.
around again,
Well, okay, but
I told you so.
Yeah.
counterpoint to that, because I don't think it's just that we love to go back, but you guys started here. Well, I'll just say this for things that I've listened to. You guys have started here and went this way. I probably came into existence here So now everything on that side and back to where you guys started was all new to me. So my venture in getting to go back was also like this.
It's
might
not
as well have come out today.
what
to
I
me.
what I want to say it is this way is there are more people trying to pull people back than trying to push people forward. Okay.
Because it's easier.
Because, like, for instance, it's like the whole baby boom generation wants to pull you back. The 70s were it. Everything after the 70s fell apart, and they don't listen
Right.
to any music today.
Right.
They
Well,
just
the
don't.
the baby boomers would say no, more like the 50s. Like my parents
I'm
would
sorry,
say,
not yet. Well, yeah, I'm
like
sorry, maybe not baby.
she likes things
The
older.
well, I'm when people are say that music died after didn't get any better than Bob Seger, you know where they're at, okay?
Yeah.
I
Take a
just
pitch.
97 Rock is an example of
Yes.
trying not to push forward. Because if you
Right.
listen to 97 Rock for years and years, nothing against 97 Rock, probably one of the most popular rock channels that
I
Buffalo's
still
ever
like
had.
them.
All right.
Yeah,
But
I
the
do
fact
too.
fact of the matter is Bad Company was played every hour on the hour, and that was followed up by the same. It was all the same.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they would do during March Madness, they would do the band madness. Very cool, but it's always similar
The
to the
same.
same bands. They would play
Mhm.
against different people, like Mellencamp would go against Pink Floyd eventually.
Yes.
Shit,
Yes.
right? And then as you saw it starting to creep in, finally Metallica gets in. Finally, because all of a sudden it's become classic rock, right?
Yes.
So that's where I believe the old people, were trying.
And that's at another point right now. It's finally starting to hit 90s stuff in there.
Yeah, Nirvana was
Finally.
in the mix, and it's like
Pearl Jam, and you're getting into the hip were even in there this year in that 500 countdown I listened to.
Yeah.
I heard like 2 or 3 hip songs in it that I kind of like. As soon as they came out, I'm like, wait, what?
So
Well, where were we, Mark? We were just in that Japanese restaurant the other day, and what was that song?
they
I
were
can't.
playing Neil Young's Harvest Moon
Oh, I
Yeah.
was gonna
on
say
a
turning Japanese. I
digital
think I'm turning.
version of it that was
Stop it.
it was trying to
I really
get me
think
to
so.
buy sushi from a robot, and
Oh, that place.
I didn't
Oh,
fall
they
for
should have played Sticks.
I'm not going there.
it. Yes. So on that note, let's find out the elder statesman of the group where this musical journey began. What?
It's
What?
an edit. It sounds like a Beck thing. Edit.
Okay. Well, being the elder statesman, I have a lot to say about this subject.
Oh
Probably-
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I go to bed at 10.
Probably about 45 minutes or so, maybe an hour. But
He's going to read them off stone tablets.
actually, I got the
Not the Stone Temple Pilots.
The Lord gave us
Stone
15, 10, 10 commandments.
My earliest music imaginations is the word I'm going to use, is Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, the Big Bopper, those guys. Those are my earliest. That's what I grew up in. And then, but I wasn't very interested in it. It wasn't until the Beatles came out. That was my first interest. As I've said before on another show, we talked about our first album, the first stuff. The Beatles were my first. And then in '69, my world changed. Hence my name, the Grateful Dude. Rich Dick came along and I became a deadhead. For the next 20 years, I was a serious deadhead. I listened to Dead, Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and a selective few. But that was it. And for about a 7-year period between 18 and 25 or so, all I listened to was Dead. Went to Dead parties, listened to Dead. That was
dead
cool.
parties.
A dead party? You're too young.
Not at my house.
Apparently, Oingo Boingo was into that too.
What's wrong with Alex? Is
I know he's creepy. What's
He's
happening?
walking around he's walking around his basement and
I had to
This
get
is
a water from the
Halloween
fridge.
show. Oh my God. Okay.
so
He said Oingo Boingo. That's one of the best Halloween songs right there.
it's a dead man's party.
but my world changed dramatically when I was with my first wife, because her music was country rock, and stuff like that. So I got into a different genre. She also liked Six Pistols and other people like that.
Oh wow.
She was country and punk rock with overtones of both, slightly in between. So it was a bit strange. Then I thought my music was dead. I really did. For up to about 3-4 years ago, when Mark started this station, and he opened up my world. I literally opened up my world, because he had me listen to stuff I had never even not heard of, would not even engage the notion of listening to. So it's really changed. You have to. Music is the kind of thing that is very subjective. You can like it, dislike it, but at different points of your life. 20 years ago, this new stuff that I've been listening to and liking, 20 years ago, I would have said, shut it down, turn it off, throw it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know? It's subjective to when you are listening to it and your mindset. Now I'm open to a whole bunch of music, stuff I thought I would never listen to, and some I like, some I dislike. But at least I can be honest, especially with this type of panel we have. I can be honest with you. You guys know me, I know you, and I tell. Yeah,
I think the biggest difference is you're taking controlled chances too now. Like, it's not just a random shot in the dark with an infinite number of possibilities.
This is true. This is true. But Mark has been known, especially on Saturdays, because I do a lot of Saturdays with him, to throw anything at me. And some of it is definitely garbage in my book. But there's been some lights at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So
Good. Cool. Deb.
Okay, me. Well, I mean, we've talked about a little bit of my influences when I have to do my top 5, whatever. I was born in the early 60s, and in my situation, my parents were 10 years apart. So my influence from both my parents came from very different directions. My dad was a big band, Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman, but also Etta James, Patsy Cline, Billie Holiday. So, and even maybe not Robert Johnson per se, because I don't remember him really until Eric Clapton started to bring the blues to us, but there was definitely blues people. I don't know who they were, but that was my first introduction to blues, was through my dad, along with that older type music. My mom, being 20 when I was born, Beach Boys, Elvis, those like the big tops, or with the four tops, or I don't even know, the Temptations, things like that. That was that wasn't my dad's thing. That was more my mom's thing. And then having my dad being so much older than my mom, my cousins on my dad's side were kind of in an in-between generation between my mom and me. So then by the time I was 5, I went from Glenn Miller to Jimi Hendrix. And that's pretty influential. And until you asked this question, Mark, I really didn't get it. And so this was a great topic for me, because I thought, well, how elementary is this? And then when I started to really think about it and write it down, I went, well, I started playing piano when I was 5 years old, and I had already heard Jimi Hendrix and Etta James and, Benny Goodman and the Beach Boys. And so I took piano for 5 years. Obviously, that's a lot of classical music. But there was a lot of ragtime in there because you got Scott Joplin and that kind of thing when you get a little bit older and you're trying to get into the mix of some more complex, and jazz piano is not an easy thing to do. So that influenced me. And then, I kind of railed against the non-mainstream. In my dad's time, it was mainstream just to take piano. But by the time I was 12, 13 years old, all my friends were in band and they were doing marching band and symphony. And I said, well, I don't want to do this anymore. So I picked clarinet because of Benny Goodman of all things. So,
Okay.
and then when you're in symphony and orchestra, you're playing not just classical music, but a lot of things to keep your parents engaged that have to come to these awful concerts. I mean, you're doing soundtracks and show tunes and things like that. So then I was introduced to Broadway things. So by the time I wasn't even in high school, I had a pretty well-rounded um, base or foundation of music. And it, gave me that sense of humor too, to listen to things like Dr. Demento and actually then understand the satire behind things and like some of the song, and then the Weird Al Yankovic type thing, and go, that's kind of funny. He's playing an accordion and he's Polish, but he can play, man. So you start to actually not just listen to these bands and everything
Why is
from
Polish funny?
but yes, but also
Why are
talented.
we funny?
Totally funny. Well, you're
Polish
not funny,
people,
but I am.
my kids are half Polish, Alex.
Yeah.
You're funny. You're funny people.
What's that ZY thing? I don't know. It's not really Polish. You don't.
It's Zed.
You're not Polish until you ski.
So, then when I got to, high school, I still wasn't into, heavy metal or anything like that, even though I had the Deep Purple and that kind of stuff. You have to remember those bands were heavy into keyboards. You got the Yes and Pink Floyd and a lot of keyboards, and I played piano, but I was drawn first of all to Elton John and Billy Joel. Why? Because they play piano, and that's what I can relate to. I can't play guitar. So that was the next step. And then it was MTV. Oh, well, then there was boyfriends that like Boston, and we don't even need to talk about Led Zeppelin and me on this show.
Right.
But we'll
No.
get back
I
to
feel like it says a lot about why you never ended up with the boyfriends who like Boston.
Yeah, really. Once I got rid of Boston, I got a boyfriend. So, sorry. I hope they're not listening.
I hope they are. That's the
Oh, yes,
guests
I
I
did
want to
wait
get
to
on the
know.
next show.
That'd be cool. So then after that, though, was MTV. So then I got to do the whole MTV thing, going, oh my God, remember when the Beatles had that Hard Day's Night movie that was so cheesy? And now we've got this whole channel that thinks they invented this, which was really cheesy.
Easy.
But that opened me up to a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't have listened to in the early 80s when I was starting my career. Maybe I would have gotten stuck, but MTV opened me to listen to things like John Cougar Mellencamp that maybe I wouldn't. And you go through those kinds of things, and then a lull happens. You're in your late 20s and you're starting a family. Then my kids kind of got me back into things, even in the mid 90s. And so,
You start teaching them Don Henley was in the Eagles like right away.
but that was also going to be one of my points, was just how many of these people from these bands back in the 60s, 70s, 80s then started to go solo and do things that were making you pay attention to whole maybe their root was in this kind of music you like, but they started doing something a little bit different than what they were in their original bands. And then that makes you listen more. And it's a snowball effect, and you got to pay attention a little bit. But we lose track because of things, you know. And then my son, that was the hip hop, rap, some of the alternative stuff that I never would have listened to, but I have a great appreciation for anything that is rooted in talent and not in just anger. I'm not all about the anger stuff, but there's a lot of great musicians, a lot of great lyricists, they're poets, and I know that there's a lot of garbage too, but you had mentioned in your little synopsis of what we were supposed to be talking about. Did you stop going to concerts? Well, yeah, I did. I had to. I didn't go to Bills games anymore during that time. So I was listening more to the car radio, which, like Alex was saying, and Sue, it's not so scripted unless you're listening to the same station all the time, but you got to be excited about what the next song was going to be. And I still do that to this day. That's still important to me. And then as my kids got a little bit older, then Christopher being a hockey player and playing under the tutelage of Mark, all of a sudden there was Buckethead in my house. There was Buckethead in my house. I'm like,
Buckethead
who's
in the
this Coach
house.
K? Buckethead in the house. You know, so that made me listen to things. I would Buckethead, but cool. Love Buckethead. So, you know, to carry that a little further, then my kids get older, then I meet my second husband, and I never liked country, and T2 opened me up to country. I like country now, certain kinds of country. I just went to a 2-day country festival in Anderson, South Carolina, that I'm not sure is really there anymore after the storm, but
Yeah, might
here's
be
to Anderson.
yeah.
And so I can trace my musical love and roots and influences probably from the 40s until today.
Nice.
So there you go.
So you said something funny in there too that I never thought about perspective wise, because I'm going to go from the flip side of it. And you talk
Okay.
about the influences you drew from your son.
Mhm.
I want to talk about an influence I drew from a parent that wasn't my own.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you remember the Goodrich family. So his mom was a choir teacher, I think it was. And or not a choir teacher, a choir member, and beautiful singing voice. And so
Mhm.
anytime me and Matt would be in the car together,
She'd sing.
whatever they were listening to, she was singing. But what was the family into? Like Avenged Sevenfold, Disturbed, and whatever.
Yeah.
But she's not singing that as like Dave Draymond. She's singing it in a choir form to stuff that I'm like, in the back seat, I remember my wheels spinning going, wait, there's other ways that you can make this sound.
Yes.
It isn't
Music.
so, but it
Yes.
wasn't
There
even
you
that,
go. I
it
love
wasn't
this
even that.
point.
No, but it wasn't even that. I'm talking like you're singing Down with the Sickness in choir form. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Down
allude
with
to
the
is that
sickness.
you
not just
find a
Sound of
different
Silence, but
Yeah.
song is the song, right? And it can be
but
portrayed in any way or fashion. And
that was the first time I ever heard what I started to realize was a cover. It took me till 13, 14, or no, like 11 to 13 to go, oh, you can sing things a different way in your own way, and that's in your wheelhouse that you're good.
Well,
yeah.
it's perfect that you say that, because in my notes to add was my dad being what I had said was the influences he gave me. He was mortified that I liked a band like Led Zeppelin. And believe you me, when the Buffalo Philharmonic did their Led Zeppelin series and I went, I sent him the program
yeah.
and said,
Told you.
And that was truly the first
write a
time
good song.
well, that's where I started to learn like what really went into music and
Yeah.
notes and how they translate it outside of your genre. And that's why I try to have a little bit of an appreciation when I hear rappers doing country now, and when I hear country people like Zach Brown covering Metallica,
Yeah.
and like when I hear different ones trying stuff outside their wheelhouse, I kind of always think back to that friend's mother and being like, that's the first time I ever heard the ends were so drastic when you go from choiry, gospely, beautiful singing to just imagine someone screaming bloody murder over on the other side. And I'm like, huh. And it still sounds like it a little bit, but
Yeah.
it isn't. So I always harken back to that in my listening experience too.
Yeah, Tori Amos covering Slayer. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So that's me. That's me.
That's you. Well, for me,
Yeah.
it all started on a puke-colored carpet in North Tonawanda in the 70s. Wearing headphones that probably were heavier than my entire body. And I know for a fact that the headphones being placed on my ears completely eclipsed the ears and went all the way down to my chin.
I remember those.
It was attached by the early makings of a bungee cord that you could have hopped off a building from and been pulled back. Because many times I forgot where I was and I had to get yanked back, and I'm sure that's why my ears are funny to this day.
The original shock collar.
There you go. So, and that cord, of course, was attached to an old Philco radio that had 47 knobs on the son of a bitch, and none of them worked except the volume and the station tuning. And of course, at the top was a turntable, a record player that
absolutely
magically rolled out and stayed in its platform, the doors aside. I mean,
oh my
it's
God,
it's a magnificent looking piece that seems like it should be in a funeral home or a church more than it should be in a living room. They never made them look that sexy. They always looked, like old
chunky
and demonic. So I was listening to whatever my parents had purchased for records. Well, they didn't purchase a lot of records. But they had the fever. All right. They had a certain fever, and it wasn't cowbell, unfortunately. So there was no Blue Oyster Cult in the
it
collection.
was Lawrence Welk.
Yeah, they had a fever for dance fever. Okay. So it started with disco, and I hate disco. Okay.
Oh, are you kidding?
Disco is so bad.
Is this true?
It's insane. Okay. But at that age, hey, I was smitten with it because what the hell did I know? Right.
Mhm.
And for those of you that are offended, okay, so now we're down to 144 members.
We'll go up to 145 if you picture Mark with a fro.
Yeah. So I look in there and I'm discoed out. Okay. So I got to grab something else. All right. So in there is Smothers Brothers. All right. Let's put that on. See what that's all about.
Sure.
This a little bit of folk, but a joke folk. They're just joking around. The Vicious Blue Puma and it's a comedy act, right? So, and it's pretty clever. It's the rockabilly, more country-ish folk. And then there's this black guy on a some sort of sled going down a hill, and it's Bill Cosby, and I finally get to hear a comedian. So that was my other in my ear is Bill Cosby talking about some chicken heart that ate up New York City, and the fact that his console's taken out and a little bit hanging down the floor.
Yeah.
Kentucky.
What?
Right? So
Then you have some Jello.
yeah, that the Jello wasn't even around then. I don't even think he had that deal yet, right?
Yes, it was.
So-
No, we didn't.
So, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. I got to look. And then there's this black album with a rainbow in it and a triangle.
Oh, there.
This did not come from my parents.
No, it did not. I know your
I
parents.
think my uncle had a record in there, and that was Pink Floyd, obviously The Dark Side of the Moon, which must be reckoned with, right? That's when you put those on.
Yes.
I had sound canceling headphones back in 1979 or whenever the hell that album came out. because I couldn't
73.
hear anything else but what the hell was going on in those headphones. I mean, probably could have had those on and never heard anything ever again. But that's where it started for me. And I'm pretty sure my parents could have been on Dance Fever back then, because they would listen to anything that had that, because they like to move it. They like to move it. So
I thought they
Then
were
there's-
village
Wow.
people and they like to stay at the YMCA.
yes, the car, an Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah,
That's
dandy.
okay.
Got the 8-track. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Mark feels safest of all. He can lock all his doors.
The 8-track experience. I don't think they made many 8-tracks of albums, because I never saw anything other than the Charlie Daniels Band, the Kenny Rogers, and Kiss. That was
They
all.
made 8
What
tracks.
a trio.
They made 8
Yeah.
tracks of everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
I never got. My mindset goes to, because I'll tell you, this gets a little better as it goes on. So, Casey and the Sunshine Band. That's another one.
Yes, of
dear
course.
God. Oh,
Do a little dance, make a little love. Get down tonight.
Oh gosh, I didn't. I had no idea what making love was back then. All right, and I
You're like, what?
Well, the way Mark was describing his 8-track collection, I thought I was going to hear The Devil Went Down to Detroit Rock City.
well, hang on. I told you, Charlie Daniels Band. So The Devil Went Down to Georgia was a must play in the 8-track, and they
Yes.
played the living hell out of that song. It was the most. I was probably spent 400 weeks at number 1. All right, but it was in the 8-track, and I didn't want to listen to radio. I wanted that 8-track thing to play, right? So then my stereo had an 8-track player. Did you know that if you put tape over the little edge of it, you could record? So I got rid of the Charlie Daniels Band. I got rid of KC and the Sunshine Band, and I certainly got rid of Kenny Rogers, because I wasn't gambling.
You recorded.
All right. So I, on the radio, started to record the things that I want. So I'm listening to late night radio, Casey Kasem. If you put that
Yep.
on, you could have all the greatest hits of that time frame on an 8-track. All right.
Yes.
I could. Hey, let's face it, 8-track was here to stay. No. So
To
all
this
of those
day,
were
to
fun.
this day,
8 years.
to this day, I still have never seen, held, or know how to function an 8-track.
It was pretty simple.
like
You
a
put it in and it
VCR.
played itself.
It's like a
you-
VCR tape.
Have
Yeah.
never even seen it, touched it, held it, felt it, whatever.
I had an Aerosmith one that finally just snapped because I kept playing Train kept a rolling
Oh, yeah,
over
yeah.
and over and over.
I also started my own internal radio station at that point. Yeah, that's right. I would record myself doing radio, and I was arrested at 13 for copyright infringement and running an illegal radio station without a permit. And my understanding of that was I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So
Yeah,
I'm
go.
pretty sure my sister Linda blew me in for the reward money. Yeah, I think so. But she got a waterbed later that year. That's how she got it. I'm pretty sure.
God.
So radio influence would change on me later as I began to use radio talk show and radio personalities to develop more experience of music that was out there. I was done with the bad companies, the Phil Collins, the Janet Jacksons, the Madonnas, and all that radio that was going on at that point. The 90s were coming, and I went across the border for radio to Canada, Q107, the Rock Report on CFNY's Thursday 30. Thursday 30 was developed to just have people call in to suggest what the 30 would be. And that would be the 30. There wasn't what was popular, what was there. It was whatever people were calling in the most.
I remember that.
And I
Cool.
listened to that show. I think it was on for 2.5 hours every Thursday. And I would be pissed if there was a hockey game that night. Because I had to, like they were cutting into my time to find
Right.
new music, right? So, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until a little bit later they actually wound up putting it on internet so that you could see what the 30 were. So I could go back. So thank you to the internet for that, right? So that was kind of good. So that's where I developed the I Mother Earth, the Tragically Hips, the Our Lady Peace, the Dead Weather, and so many other bands, not even Canadian too, on that show.
All thanks to that screeching noise of dial-up.
Yeah. Yes. So that becomes to Canada, to record stores, to all of this. I wouldn't have the massive collection behind me if I hadn't been exposed or had that connection to sound like I do. So
Or to your friend Bill.
yes, well, okay. So
Oh
a
yes,
special shout out to
Bill.
those that I have put their
Buddy.
kids through college, or their dogs through dog training. Yeah, I'm a sucker. When I walk into a record store, I'm marked in more ways than one. I have been identified in record stores I have never been in before, having a conversation in Canada, and the guy looks at me and he says, "Are you Mark?" And I'm
Come
like,
on.
"How do you know who I am?" And he's like, "You're friends with Bill." I can tell. He goes, yeah, just based on what you're asking me." He goes, "That's hilarious." Yeah, it's true.
Oh my God.
So anyway, back to the panel.
Well, what's funny about this too, you brought up a point there about Canada and radio. In my freshman or sophomore year of high school, I had the same epiphany, I guess we'll call it, or just moment of catching Canadian radio and learning all of the rock music they would never play here in the States. And that was my introduction to some of those same bands you were talking about. Like, I remember it took me way too long to understand who Sloan was, and I thank my cousin for going, "You should check him out at Canal Side." And then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Wait a minute, I've heard that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, all on that station too."
Yeah. So
I want to say something. You reminded me when I was between college and between high school and my first year of college. I did 6 months at the CSUN, California State University in Northridge campus as a assistant disc jockey. And as the assistant jockey, all I did was I picked the albums I was going to play. And we
that's fun.
didn't play anything that was current, or if it was current or on the top 10, we didn't have it in our collection. We had all records, and we played some real cool stuff at that time. Really cool.
that always was a wonderment to me. Okay, now I know you had singles. Okay, so you put the record down, right? But when you
Yeah.
had the album, how the
Well,
how do you put it on the needle right at the right
Was
place?
there a lot of like?
put your hand.
I've wondered this too.
Put your earphone on and you put it down, and just for you get it when you stop it and you turn it on just at the right time.
You could stop at the record player?
Sure.
Oh, my
All
record player.
records stop.
Okay.
All record players have a stop to them.
Oh no!
Like, did you just hold the disc?
I thought that's why everybody started
we
to do
dropped
this.
it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do that too. Some people did that. I would put it on and I would get it and just stop it. And when I turn it on, it was like 2 seconds of clear. And then
So how many turntables did you have? 2, 3?
eight.
And a
Eight.
microphone.
Mhm.
2 turntables and a microphone.
Oh my God, Dad.
Where it's at. So
I thought where Jeff was going with his story was he was going to say he invented Sirius XM radio because the station was the first to play exclusively the Grateful Dead.
So
God,
I
that
have
would be
never.
cool.
The first ever Grateful Dead only station.
We don't have it in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have Sirius XM in Hawaii, and I've never ever listened to it, not once.
yeah,
It's just radio that you can pretty much stream everywhere except
it's
for
paying
apparently
for
the
radio
islands.
when you can get it for free. What's up with
Yeah.
that? Although, okay,
Yeah.
Alex, is your musical journey over?
No.
No.
There's too much to go for me. Being
All
30, I imagine I have like 20 good years left in me
What?
mentally and physically. So
40?
20 years. You're 30 and you got 20
Yeah,
years
at
left.
50 years
Okay,
old, he's
okay.
done. He's gonna go back.
No, always start low and expect to be surprised after that. So
the old Ty Cobb rule. I got it.
undersell, over deliver. So we'll find out.
Okay.
So at least 20 years of hopefully some
I hope
more
so.
things come up. But I also know that I still haven't divulged into the past, and hell, I can't even keep up with the last year. So there's still a long way to go for me. yeah, it's endless. It truly is. It's not humanly possible unless you're Jeff Crichton. So we really missed him on that episode too.
I know.
He wanted to be on. He's very saddened, but he said maybe he can
Yeah, he would
chime
have
in
had
on another.
Unless you're
episode.
him, then he's heard fucking everything. So
yeah, but he's still interested in hearing more.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Unless
He
it's
appreciates
certain
the
artists.
evolution.
well,
right?
then he's gonna get me playing the electric triangle to open up
Yeah,
his horizons.
I'm gonna send him an electronic album, see how that goes over. Sue, what is your musical journey over? Should I just stay in the basement?
Yeah, that could work.
There'll be a
Now
bed down there tomorrow.
now I know why we couldn't go out on Thursday nights. So
Yeah.
I see where I'm on your priority list. But
And this
Beyond
is the
your
show where
marriage,
beyond
it's
your.
gonna be
I was just gonna say
BYM.
this is the first ever Beyond Your Radio episode that led to a divorce.
no, it's not. Obviously, it's not over.
Oh.
The marriage
always
or
a-
the listening?
Oh, the music. So no, I'm always going to look for new things and and obviously I don't know. I mean, Lauren is kind of a country fan, so I do listen to some of that. I don't know where they're going to go with their music, but I'm sure it's
Mhm.
going to, be infused into my life to some degree
Yeah.
at any rate. So,
And it's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
I didn't mind hearing, hearing Milli Vanilli. Like I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. But that's cool.
Nostalgia.
All good.
Grateful dude.
If you would ask me 7 years the same question, I would say, yeah, it was over. It was gone. I'd say same, get up, put my Stairway to Heaven on, or Grateful Dead on, or whatever, and listen to it, Now it's endless. Because of Mark, and I owe Mark thanks for this, and kudos, because he's opened up my world of music. And I don't believe that your ship is sailed until it's sailed, until it's the end. When I die, they'll be playing music by my casket or whatever, and hoping it.
It'll be the day the music died, right? Get a Don
Yeah.
McLean.
I'll be playing the Ungrateful Alive.
The Ungrateful Alive.
There is a copy band named that.
Yeah, you should. Don't even
California
take it. Yeah.
Ungrateful, Dead Alive.
Deb,
Claim it.
what's,
Claim it quick.
What? Oh yeah,
What?
name
Me?
Yeah, that's to you
No,
now.
I mean, I'm probably going to be another 30 years, so I'll miss you, Alex. Because I'm only 61. I'm going to be here till at least 100. No, I can't imagine that there would be anything but learning new music. Obviously, you've accelerated the process for me, Mark. I feel like I'm up on it a little bit more with new music because I work with all young people. So I'm influenced by that. And also, the music stations that I do listen to, I'm not foreign to even a lot of the newer bands that were out of Canada that then we did From the Leaf, things like that I think some people might be surprised that somebody in their 60s would know. So it's not anything new for me to know new music. I'm just obviously, like we talked about, slowed down in the process of finding it until this show. And you've helped me with that. And even though sometimes you give me the Saturday
Yeah.
homework, it can be a lot,
Yeah, it is.
but it's good for me to do it. And I've been surprised because there's been some bands that I went, I already know some of these songs because they released their singles before they released the album. And I think that I'm pretty damn hip. So yeah, it's going to keep me cool. I'm going to find husband number 7
Number
because
7.
Robert, I'm waiting for Robert.
So for me, if I it didn't take this journey, I would have 170 some $1,000 in the bank if all of my CDs were at an average cost of $10. So in that, there's major regret because
They were having a sale.
I would have retired.
No.
CD had become my format, the trust fund. I couldn't live 8-track anymore. It didn't work. So, and I knew that record was dead, and then God bless it came around again.
back.
But you can't stick a record in your car. So that just
Right.
seems pointless. And now they won't put CD players in the car. They're messing with my makeup, everything, right? I love digital, okay, because I can now experience things from the comfort of my home instead of driving to Rochester and, wherever the hell I drove to go to record stores to find stuff. Now I can I can go on Twitter and talk with Rich and the Filthy Philistine and all these other people, and they're listening to this stuff. They're bringing up bands that I'd never heard of, and it crazy, right? It's too much. Yes, it's too much. Is that why people started to say I'm done? I think that's why. I think that's where they retreated to comfort zones and places that they could just say, listen, I don't want to go that way. I don't want to deal with that. I don't know what format but I love it when people go to the record store. I see them at the record store and they're younger kids and they're buying that album or CD, or they're asking questions. Do I wish I owned a record store? Yeah, probably, but that's like a drunk having a bar. So that's probably not the greatest idea either. So
unless you call it therapy.
Yes,
therapist.
therapy. That's what it is.
Or therapist.
So
it all comes full circle.
It's just like Robert Downey Jr. when he was asked, "Would you do it all again?" And that's all the bad shit too. And that I am the same way. I wouldn't change a thing. The 80s was a tough time. But yeah, I know why I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this because I know the panelists and how they've come along to this, right? Some of them I had to pull in. Some of them were like, "Oh, this is gonna be awesome," and that it's an adventure. If I could do this full time, boy, that'd be fantastic. It is full time, but it's not full time. But I want to thank the panelists for doing this tonight and sharing themselves here. I know this is a longer episode. I'm sad Jeff Crichton couldn't be on because that would have been an interesting parlay of music and
30 minutes.
Yeah, well, we'd be 2 hours if Jeff DeYoung was here too. So a DJ kind of guy. So all kinds of influences and stuff. And if you're out there and you're watching this and start your journey now. There's no problem when you start it and with the different artists.
Never over.
Yeah.
It's never over.
It's only over when you call it over. And I'm going to be in the nursing home with the 17,000. Well, probably by that. I'm still buying stuff. I probably shouldn't be. It's stupid. What am I going to do with it?
It's your passion. It's your passion.
So, I have to hold that.
Don't encourage him.
What, Sue?
Nothing.
Nope. I'll be able to play it back and hear it anyway. So
So you should start selling his collection when he's asleep.
We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, albums, bands, artists. It doesn't matter. Anything we're going to play. Coming up this Thursday is Albums to Take to Hell. Yes. Do whatever you will with it. That should be a fun episode. Maybe it'll be 2 hours. We're going to pontificate even more.
I just need to learn the name of a Diddy album.
Oh, no.
Well, it's your reasons for taking it to hell. I guess it's mine. We're would say go beyond your radio with us at Real Music Appreciation Channel. Thanks for watching and happy listening.